YouTube is live. Perfect. The last thing we must do is start the recording. Uh-oh. Where'd Robinson go? He disappeared. Uh-oh. It's starting. Can I hear you, Chaz? I cannot hear you.
You can't hear me?
Because I'm not speaking.
Hold on.
You can't hear me?
Let me make sure. All right. Now you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, but you're very quiet.
How about now?
Ooh, that's better.
Yeah.
Better? Okay.
Am I okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, good.
All right, I'm ready if you're ready.
Yeah, let's do it.
Good to go.
All right, give me a second. Stop it. All right, had to get the levels. All right, broadcast has started. Here we go. In 3, 2. Welcome to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. I am your host. We are coming to you live on youtube.com and streaming into your eardrums via podcast on iTunes and all around the world on your favorite podcast catcher. You can get in touch with us via the facebook.com/soberhappyhour. Follow us on Twitter @soberhappyhour. Send us an email, soberhappyhour@gmail.com. And I was pondering a Snapchat. Now, before you say anything, I know what I've always thought of Snapchat, but recently I realized that all of the kids use Snapchat more than they use the other Facebooks and Twitters and MySpaces. So maybe we think about doing that. But I'm here, as always, with my two very, very good friends, Chas and Robinson. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen.
All right. So what do you think? Snapchat?
Snapchat?
I just installed Snapchat for the first time a few days ago.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out how to use it, so I deleted it. It just seems weird. I mean,
that's what I've always thought too. But
the reason kids use it is because it leaves no trace.
But see, that's horseshit. See, I thought the same thing, and so I'm fortunate enough to work with a lot of young people, and the truth of it is that yes, Snapchat used to be for dick pics and boob shots, but it has definitely become a full-blown social media network, and businesses use it for the purposes of staying in touch with the younger crowd. And so I thought about making a Snapchat for Rachel's kitten business, and then maybe I'll try that first.
yes, that would work really well for kittens because everybody loves kittens. And
But if
you can also set it so the picture doesn't disappear.
Right. And there's things on Snapchat now called story streams where you actually can like put a bunch of pictures and videos together with your little blurbs and whatnot and create a story about your weekend trip to Vegas or something, and that story stream stays forever as well. So I don't know, maybe I'll do it for the kittens, and then if I can figure it out and it makes sense, then we can do one for the show, and then I can give both of you guys access to it so then we can all use it whenever we feel like something interesting. Like for the articles that we post to each other, like on Facebook or whatever,
Okay.
that might
So
be
if we
it.
just
Might be
happen to
something.
come across something, we can just post it and.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
I say
Cool.
the more the merrier. I don't
So
know.
would I be on as me, or would we all three be on as sober
We'd
happy
I,
hour?
I think we'd each have access to it, and then like just any time during the week or whatever, if we're on,
Right.
we just like, hey, check it out. I just learned that, da 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 blah blah blah. What a
Exactly. And we wouldn't be our own individual selves. We would be posting as the show.
Okay,
hmm
that sounds
So
We'd
interesting.
have a show account.
right, exactly. I don't know. Something to think about. And it's
Yeah.
easy and free. Haha. So I am in my finest Diamondbacks gear because I'm a good father and my kids like to go to baseball games. And I'm not a big Robinson, you've known me for a very long time. I'm not a sports fan, but my kids love to go to Diamondbacks games, and we're fortunate enough that their grandparents have been season ticket holders since the Diamondbacks became a team. So they've literally had tickets for 20 years, and they have these incredible seats, one row behind the dugout of the Diamondbacks. And I believe their official name now is the D-backs. They're no longer the Diamondbacks. They are the D-backs.
Seriously?
Yeah, that happened a few years ago. So we have fun, and the game was actually really exciting towards the end. And Peyton, the big baseball kid, is currently in the Little League All Stars for the Phoenix area. So it's exciting for him to go and see the big leaguers play because he has been practicing his little butt off for the last few weeks leading up to the All Stars, which the tournament starts this coming week. So it's fun. And say what you will about my attire this evening, but could be worse. I could be a Mets fan. Baseball joke.
They
I
have them. They have them.
don't know. I have no fucking clue. Um, Chaz,
hmm
what's different about you this week?
I'm in landscape.
You're in landscape. That's what it is. And for some reason, every time your picture shows up, it says HD next to it.
Hmm?
Huh.
I'm
Interesting.
filming in high def.
You are, and you look crystal clear.
Really? Because I look like shit on my iPad.
It says
And
every
just
time you
and just
pop up.
earlier, Robinson and I, when we were just chatting, I was like really blurry and all fuzzed up.
Huh. It definitely says HD on yours. Robinson, say something.
Yes. Hello. I am here and I am ready to go.
His does not say HD. Only yours.
Yeah. You
Wow.
know what? His mic was sounded perfect before. Um.
We're talking
When.
about the video.
Oh. The video. Okay.
Yep. Not the
Well, his
microphone.
video was fuzzy before, and
Yeah.
then he turned it sideways and it came good. I think that fuzziness that we're looking at now is just from his bandwidth.
Right. You clearly weren't paying attention to what we were talking about
No,
a minute
I
ago.
was actually posting the show on on my Vietnamese chat thing. So
You are forgiven because it was not anything important. We were just talking about. I see this little HD emblem populate in the bottom of the screen when he is in the foreground, and we were trying to figure out why. Anyway,
okay.
not important. What is important is that we're going to get Robinson a cough button eventually one of these days. Send your donations to hashtag SHHRP on the Cash app so that we can afford a cough button for Robinson. It's all those years of smoking cigarettes. I'm
What
telling
is
you.
a cough button?
I don't
So,
smoke cigarette.
great question. A cough button is something that broadcasters, live broadcasters, use that is a little button, typically on the floor like a pedal, that if you know you're about to cough or sneeze or have to clear your throat, you can step on the button for a second and it mutes your microphone so then you can cough, not have it go through the microphone, and then click the button again to start your audio over.
That's cool.
A cough button. Yeah, it's pretty good. Because sensitive microphones, like the ones we're all using, and the fact that we're not just like a musician holding a microphone singing with a band where you can just like turn your head and they can't hear you, you can still hear pretty much everything.
Yeah.
So, cough button. Yes. Or maybe it's called a sneeze button. Huh.
Snooze button.
I definitely know about those. I abuse my snooze. I really do. It's bad. It's bad. So, I just finished editing and posted the last episode, and god damn it, it's only been 2 weeks since our episode with our guest, Dr. Chris. It's only been 2 weeks. That blows my mind because it feels like it was 2 months ago. June went by so slowly. Is amazing.
It did. It really did.
So posting it, I'm thinking like, man, it's been a while since we've done a show. But in reality, it's only been 2 weeks. So I just posted it, and I'm going to be very curious to see what kind of feedback we get from it. And I actually posted a disclaimer, Chaz, that said, like at the beginning of some TV shows, where it says, you know, the following are the sole opinions of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sober Happy Hour radio podcast. I put a disclaimer in there because we definitely had some thoughts and some feelings regarding our guest 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And I was thinking about it after we talked, and I guess I totally get like where she was coming from to a certain degree, right? Like from her clinical medical background. But then I totally can I can also look at it from the patient's perspective and think about how harmful or detrimental a program, if you will, a dope them up, put them on drugs, you know, pharmaceuticals, psychiatry, if you will, kind of program could be for somebody that experienced a trauma or is in the midst of trauma, i.e. being incarcerated and having a drug addiction. And I don't know, I thought a lot about it, and unfortunately that was 2 weeks feeling like 2 months ago, so most of those thoughts have gone away. But when you want to, and I'm certainly not putting you on the spot right now, but once the people have had a chance to listen to the episode that I posted today, I would love to do sort of a review of that episode from a different perspective and let us kind of talk about some of the points and counterpoints. What do you think?
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
Do we actually get comments and feedback?
We do. I mean, we do. And often they're not on the YouTube, so I might get comments or feedback via email most often. So if I get comments and feedback, I'll print them out and we can talk about some of the comments. And then if you want to go back, guys, and listen to the episode and then formulate whatever opinion you have, I will do the same, and then we can kind of pick it apart and talk about it. Because I think it would be interesting for our listeners to hear what we think of some of the comments and views and statements that were made, so that way they don't assume that we agree with all of them if we don't. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Do you have an alarm going off in the background?
I
No,
heard
it's
it too.
It's fireworks going off, and they're setting off the car alarms.
Aha!
Yeah, I don't know why tonight.
All of the fireworks shows in the Phoenix area are happening tomorrow, which is
Monday.
weird. Yeah, but everybody has Monday off. So what the hell? I don't know.
I don't
I've
know.
never heard of fireworks shows happening on a Sunday because 4th of July was a Monday. But that being said, I thought it might be fun to talk about the 4th of July and drinking, partying, drunk driving, fireworks,
General
drunk
stupidity.
Mhm.
fireworking, and all of the ridiculousness that people get into in the 4th of July weekend, to the point where I've talked about the Department of, what is it? DPS, Department of Public Safety in
Mhm.
Arizona.
Yeah.
I've talked about the ridiculous Department of Public Safety and the really obnoxious freeway signs, the LED freeway signs that they have now that have these tragic jokes. They try to make jokes about drunk driving and how you shouldn't drive drunk.
They
And they
had
try,
Star Wars themed
right,
ones.
they try to be funny. They
Yeah.
try to be funny. And, it was like use the force, don't drink and drive before Star Wars came out that
Yeah.
weekend last year. And now it's saying designate a driver before you fill your little red cup. And somehow that's clever. I don't think it's very clever.
No.
No. They could have, I mean, they got to hire somebody that can at least throw together a rhyme or something. Like, don't be a schmuck with your little red cup. I mean, I know that doesn't rhyme, but it's close.
I always thought "Think and Thrive, Don't Drink and Drive" would be a good
Ooh,
slogan.
that's a really
You
good
you
one.
could write this shit, man.
You got to send that one in.
Send it in. I don't even
Oh,
live there.
I will. I'll send it in as the sober happy hour.
Okay, that works.
And then at the bottom, it can just say hashtag SHHRP.
Okay.
Excellent.
I wonder what it costs to put a billboard up.
Well, it's not a
No, it's not.
billboard. See, it's these
Yeah.
traffic signs. Do you not have
Mhm.
those
Oh,
yet? In
traffic
Where
signs.
it
Okay.
says like caution, crashed
What?
ahead or something like that.
Jesus, it's really loud. The only signs that we have on the freeway are the cleanup sponsorship signs. This
but
portion of the
those
freeway.
aren't digital, right?
Oh no, no.
Right. Ours are these big
Oh,
overhead
Mhm.
LEDs that they
okay.
can change. Like if there's an amber alert or
Mhm.
if
Right,
there's
right.
an
Silver
accident
alert.
ahead. We've talked about the silver alerts before, where an old person has gone missing. Um, and then they'll also tell you, freeway closures in the summertime when they have to repave the freeways, so they'll close a chunk of the freeway. Um, Sometimes it'll even tell you, uh, you know, accident ahead down to one lane, left lane's blocked. So it's kind of nice. The fuck is
What
that?
is
Is there like a sea lion in your house?
that's what I hear?
Oh, I bet your phone was vibrating.
My phone, sorry.
Got it. Sounded
My
like a sea
microphone
lion
is sitting on a cardboard box, and the phone was
on the
on the
box.
box. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I turned
It
the
did.
volume down, but
It sounded like you had a sea lion trapped in a closet that was
Mhm.
shouting to be let out. That's what it sounded like. It was like "Mm, mm, 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 mm." That's what it sounded like. Which to me sounded like a sea lion trapped in a closet
okay.
because that happens often. I don't know. I was
Well, I will
watching
let the sea
Finding
lion
Dory.
out after the show.
All right. He didn't do anything to deserve this kind of treatment. So
Yes.
I mentioned,
And that was Tiffany's fault, by the way. Tiffany is the one who vibrated my phone and interrupted our show.
hey,
Thanks, Tiffany.
Tiffany,
Thank you.
thank you for vibrating him. Um, So I mentioned that the month of June just crawled by, and I wanted to share because we talk about sobriety and recovery and addiction on this show as something that does not need to be looked at as a life sentence of negativity and hardship or sadness and loneliness and sorrow and lack of options, or somehow the stigma that exists around addicts, whether they're in recovery or not. If you get labeled a drug addict, often you may find things more difficult in your life. And we're trying to break that cycle. That was sort of the whole idea behind doing this show, and our little slogan being a real life look at addiction recovery in the 21st century. And that one of our goals that we set out to accomplish when we started this show was to try and break the stigma that an addict does not equal a bad person, right? That a recovering alcoholic does not equal an untrustworthy person or somebody that you wouldn't want working for you. And Robinson, you've shared stories about addicts and alcoholics, both in recovery and not, that you've hired to do work with you in your business, and how sometimes that's worked out really well and other times it's sort of bit you in the ass. And so I wanted to share a personal story. I've mentioned many times that I work for a large technology company, and I have worked there now. This month will make 5 years, which is a long time.
That is a long time.
Yes.
And I have been in recovery for also 5 years. A lot of people, I don't know that I've ever actually said that on this show, but it has been a little over 5 years.
You have mentioned it.
That being said, not long after I got sober, I very reluctantly applied for a position with this company. I didn't know if I would get the job. I didn't know how long I'd have the job. I just didn't know what the future held. My life was less than predictable.
You had a lot of other weird shit happen in your life just before that as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Not just the drinking and drugging,
Right,
but a
the
whole
company
bunch.
that you were working for.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So all that crazy shit going on, plus the drugs, plus the alcohol, plus the turmoil at home, plus the financial ruin that I found myself in. And I was very fortunate to get chosen for this job. And they say, and this sometimes sounds very arrogant, but it's just a matter of numbers, to be honest with you. They say that it is harder to get a job with the company that I work for than it is to get into Harvard. And that is just based on the number of applicants to the number of open positions, right? That's why they say that it's that hard. It doesn't mean that everybody that works there is some sort of fucking genius. No pun intended. But it is a very difficult job to get, and I was very, very fortunate to get chosen for a somewhat entry level, but a little bit higher up than entry level position. And when I got the job, I wasn't shy about my sobriety and my recovery, and I actually got the job through somebody that I met at an AA meeting, believe it or not. and
That's interesting.
she encouraged me to apply, and so I did. But when I got the job, because I entered the door about 3 rungs up the ladder higher than most people do, there were many people who told me, get comfortable because it's going to be a while before you move up at all because you're getting in where it takes most people 3, 4, 5 years to get to. So get comfortable. You're going to be here for a while.
And you have moved up the ladder quite a bit since then.
And that was part of the reason that I wanted to tell this story, because you're absolutely right. And so I'm not a good listener when it comes to people that say shit like that, right? I don't like being told how things are going to transpire because,
Or what your limitations are.
yeah, I like to write my own story.
Hmm.
So about 18 months in, I found myself with an opportunity to move up that ladder again, and I was lucky enough to get chosen for that. Which, to be fair, about a year earlier, about 6 months into my stint with this company, I put my name in the hat for this position and got turned down, was basically told, you're not quite there yet. Hold your horses. You've only been here 6 months. And they were right. There was a lot still to learn. They were absolutely correct. But 18 months in, I apply, I interview. The process for internal and external promotion or hiring is hard and takes time. But I got it. I was stoked, right? So 2.5 years ago, they said, yeah, we want you for this position. We think you'd be good at it. And they gave me this promotion. And I was thrilled. Just middle finger to those people who told me to get comfortable in my first role. But it's not really how I felt, right? I was very grateful. But then I get this first promotion, and now even more people are telling me, get comfortable. Get real comfortable, because where you're at now, I mean, there are people that have been with the company for 10, 12, 14 years that are in that role. Get comfortable. Okay, I hear you. I'm not going to listen to you, but I hear you, and I'm going to do my best. I'm going to work as hard as I can. I'm going to try to succeed, and if I am fortunate enough to convince the powers that be that I'm ready for another promotion, I'm not going to turn it down or take a back seat just because people are telling me, get comfortable, you're going to be here a while. So I mentioned that the month of June was a really long month. And part of the reason was that I was tapped on the shoulder at the beginning of June and told, hey, here's this next rung on the ladder. We think you're ready. We think you'd be good at it. Are you interested? And I said, of course I'm interested. Are you kidding me? I'm totally interested. All right, well then let's start this process. And about 4 interviews later, and lots of thought and stress and worry and nervousness and putting together of stories and failures and learns and things over the last 5 years, a week and a half ago, was called up by my boss's boss's boss and was told, we'd like to offer you this new position. And this new position will once again be quite the promotion with the company. I will now essentially be handed a set of keys and be in charge of not just a team of people, but the entire staff of people. Um, and they'll give me the keys to the safe, essentially.
You
From a, go ahead.
you're getting your own store?
Essentially, that is the case. And so I said, I'm interested. I did the work. I got some of the most incredible feedback of my life from people telling me what I do well and what I suck balls at and where they see me fitting into this strategy and what I would be doing, and it's a lot. The beauty of this company is that I would still only be required to work 40 hours a week. This is not a company that makes their, their leadership positions work 60, 80 hours a week. They believe very strongly in a work-life balance. So I accepted the position last week. I will be once again transferring locations to yet a fifth location in 5 years. But the reason I tell this story is not to pat myself on the back, not to make myself feel good
You're not
about
tooting your own horn. I
It's not
understand.
about. It is 100% about the fact that I am a recovering drug addict and an alcoholic who was probably in the deepest depths of hell that were my life at any point in time only 5 years ago. And the label of recovering drug addict or recovering alcoholic is seen as a career stopper. Like that is the end of the ropes for you. You will, if you are publicly a former drug addict or a former alcoholic, unless you're Robert Downey Jr., you will be labeled that, and it will make things very, very, very difficult for you in your life, potentially for the rest of forever. So you might as well give up, take a job at a fast food restaurant. Good luck. Hope you marry somebody that does well.
Yeah, but that's not the case. It's not like you have a big fucking tattoo across your forehead that says drug addict.
Absolutely not. And if anyone listening or watching thinks that because at some point in your life you struggled with drugs or alcohol and people have told you that you can't be trusted or that you're not worthy or you believe you're not worthy, you are absolutely wrong. Good things can happen to people once they clean their lives up. The most important step, the most important part is getting sober. And once you get clean, I believe that somebody that has been through that kind of bullshit in their life might actually be in a better position to
I agree
do,
with you.
right?
Yes.
Because they have
Yes.
life
Much
experience,
more life experience to take with them to the next level of life.
and you're also going to be grateful for the opportunities that you find yourself facing, because I may not make as much money as I did in my previous job, but I sure love my life a whole lot more than I did back then. And I'm not working 60 hours a week. And I'm not dealing with the bullshit that was that job. They say money doesn't buy happiness. And I can attest to that because I was making a lot more money and I wasn't happy. And that's where the drugs and the drinking and everything else came from. And so I share the story more as a story of hope, that just because you've had it rough, if you can get yourself cleaned up, you can do anything. There are people that I work with that have been with this company for 2 or 3 times as long as I have. And only maybe 3 or 4 total people have something negative or competitive, envious, jealous to say about the job that I'm taking. 3 or 4 total people. The rest have been incredibly kind and supportive and congratulatory, and it has been an amazing last couple of weeks for this drug addict. And I tell you right now, if I can do this, anyone can.
I have known a lot of drug addicts in my life, and some of them just can't bring themselves to recover. But you are probably we're one of the worst off that I've ever known. And you were definitely at the bottom, groveling around for a long time. And to see you come out of that is just amazing, and it's a great testament to anyone, who's listening.
Get clean,
Yeah.
get sober, find some support, figure it out, and then go do what you want to do. And don't listen to the haters, and don't listen to anyone who tells you that you can't do something because you aren't worthy of it, because you made these bad decisions before in your life. Therefore, you are not worthy of success or happiness. And that's just absolute bullshit. And so I get to step into this new path, this new journey very shortly. And I am scared, and I am nervous, and I am thrilled beyond words. But I know that if I stay away from the drugs and I stay away from the booze, that there's no reason that I can't reach the next step in my career with this company in a few years. And to any of the naysayers who said, be prepared to stay in that role for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years before you could even consider moving upward, I say, you're a pussy. That's what I say. Because if you believe that, then you don't believe in yourself. That you're going to let somebody else write your destiny for you? Because that's what you've seen, that's been your experience, that's been what you've witnessed other people. Write your own book, man. And I haven't hit every goal that I've set out to hit. I have, I told myself 2.5 years ago that my goal was 18 months until my next move. And it's been 2.5 years. So I didn't reach that goal, but that's okay. And I didn't go drown my sorrows in a bottle because I didn't reach that goal when I wanted to. I kept working harder. So that's my story. And it really isn't that exciting, I'm sure. But it's something that if you had told me 5 years ago that this would have been,
Or 6 years ago, for that
or
matter.
right, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, that this would have been the path my life would take, I probably would have told you you were nuts. Not a fucking chance. So if you're in that boat and you're 6 months sober, or you're 6 days sober, or you're 6 days from getting sober, know that you don't have to keep living the life that you're living. You don't have to stay on the path that you're on. And you certainly don't have to listen to anybody that tells you that you do. That you are who you are, and that you are what you are. And that is an addict, which means that you are worthless or hopeless or a fuck up who can't do anything right. I don't believe that. So
Anyway,
go get it.
thank you.
Go do it.
Story.
Stay sober.
Get sober.
Your life could start tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean,
If
what is that?
you
There's an old saying, today is the first day of the rest of your life.
Absolutely. And guess what? Every day has been the first day of the rest of my life since I got sober because I try not to think that far ahead. Even now, I try not to think that far ahead. Often it's just my excuse for not making plans with Rachel that I'll tell her I don't think that far ahead. But it's true most of the time. I'm sorry, honey, I can't make those plans to do that with you 2 weeks from now because I try not to plan my life that far in advance. That really means I don't want to do it. But it's a good excuse. When somebody is willing to use their drug addiction or their alcoholism or their whatever addiction as an excuse to be a loser, to live at home with mom, or to not have a job, and to be on welfare, then that is the choice that you've made. Not the choice to be an addict or an alcoholic. I don't believe that most people make that choice because it would be a pretty stupid choice to make.
But they're making the choice every day to stay where they are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Chaz,
Hmm.
does this ring true? Does this fit in with any conversation around mental health?
Hmm. I was just having at a last week there was kind of a mini convention that I went to, and our agency had their booth set up right next to um, a nonprofit organization that I'd been affiliated with a long time ago, um, who in the past few years I've had kind of a ideological parting of ways, you could say. Um, but there was a young woman who was working at it, and she and I got to talking, and she had been through many, many different hospitalizations, mental institutions and such. And so she was out and, really trying to get her life back on track, looking around as to, what to do and everything else. And So I'm just sitting there listening to her story and realized that, and I told her this because she was really kind of down on it and everything, not knowing what to do and, with her life and shit. And I was like, right now, you are exactly where I was 5 years ago. And it's true. I was with the exact same agency, the nonprofit organization that she was with.
Like
And
working with or
yeah, volunteering with.
volunteering. Got it.
Yeah, just volunteering, just getting involved, getting out there and, finding what your passion is. And even if it's not working right at first, volunteering will get you into that door. And so, she looked up at me and she's like, "So there is hope for me." And I'm like, "Absolutely." And it was really kind of it was kind of a cool day.
Hell yeah.
And so, I mean, yeah, that was, 5 years ago, and now I'm working for the largest, healthcare provider in our state. So, and my job title has a of the state after it. So I like that. For the state of Arizona. There we
That's cool.
go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I get to go I get to go around the country, talking about what I do. People from other countries come to our state to learn about exactly what we do. And again, this is just all from someone who was just volunteering with a nonprofit organization, just 5 years ago.
You've talked about some of your struggles with mental health in
Hmm.
your life.
Hmm.
How many years ago did you get that all sorted out?
Depends on what you mean by sorted out.
Like to be where you are right now.
The right combination of
Right.
medication.
Okay, well, as far as medication goes, it's probably, I would say, past maybe 4 years, we got the right medications. And really what that meant was the right forms of medications. Like I would be on, methylphenidate, which is Ritalin. But we switched, from regular Ritalin to Concerta, which is a 24-hour, it's an all-day pill. And that was a huge switch. So now suddenly I only take the meds when I wake up and when I go to bed. So during the day, I'm not taking any pills at all. And I totally understand why people stop taking them because you don't realize how limiting it really is until you no longer have to do it.
Hmm.
So that was a really big eye opener for me. But I had been, I've been like in treatment, I guess you could say, for since I was 18. No, since I was 17. So half my entire life.
Because I've known you for 10 years now,
Hmm.
and I've seen a different side of you in the last handful of years
Hmm.
where you kind of went from this free spirit, I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life, even as you were getting older, to now having this really awesome career that, I mean, you're helping people, you have a really cool title for your job, you travel around, you do these conferences, like you are a respected member of this, I guess, industry, if you will. And the reason I asked, like, when did you get it sorted out, it does seem to kind of fit the timetable that I had in my mind. Like you said,
Hmm.
3 or 4 years ago or so is when you might have kind of figured out the right recipe for success
Hmm.
and stability. So the reason I asked was because my experience with addiction
Hmm.
sounds similar to your experience with
Hmm.
finding the right recipe to equal stability and then find success and direction and
Well,
inevitable and happiness.
well, I'd like to also point out that it's not just medication. I mean, the last couple of years has seen the last few years have seen a really big change in the way I relate to myself and others. So really, it's it just there's a really big internal overhaul, so to speak, as far as just how I treat myself and how I see my life and everything like that. Was a lot more of acceptance and just being okay with who you are and not having to not feeling like you need to live up to society's expectations of where you should be at any given point in your life or what you should be looking for, what you should be looking to do. It's like if you're just happy on your own, I don't live alone. I live on my own.
Hmm.
So I just found peace, really. I found a lot of peace and a lot of acceptance, and really, I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
I want to say something about the similarity in both of your situations. And I mean, this applies to basically everyone in the world who is either seeking to get high or seeking to get some kind of, medication for whatever condition they might have. It's all about your headspace, whether it's from stress or from your social environment or whatever. If you're uncomfortable in your own skin for whatever reason, that's usually the main motivation for getting high.
Yeah.
And it's also the same motivation for seeking therapy or getting on proper chemistry for your brain. You're just trying to get in the right headspace. For a lot of people, smoking a bowl is just all they need.
Mhm.
And that fortunately is not addictive, but it can be it can be overwhelming if that's all you do.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Um, but
Yeah, what I just found out is that my brain has to have, I mean, because really I take the medication because of my brain. I
right.
don't take it because of anything like, I don't consider it to really be a mental illness. I just consider myself to have a brain that I need to take care of. So it really comes down to getting your brain into a state where you can find that peace, where you can make that meaning. Because if you're just cognitively unable to do that because of the way your brain is working or not working in that matter, um, you're really just going to be spinning your wheels and not making any progress at all until finally you've got to that place. But you just have to keep working at it, and you will know you are there when you don't realize it.
Mm.
In other words, like
Well, yes,
my
exactly. When you no longer think about your unfortunate situation because you're focused on your positive life.
hmm my shrink once asked me, this is like after we found that right combination. She said, it was a time during the year when usually I down cycle and just really feel like shit. And she said, so it's November. How are you feeling? And I'm like, fine.
So you kind of
And it was like feeling fine was a profound experience. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of like how I know, yeah, this is okay. This is good. We like
so you
this.
Yes. For some people, just mediocrity alone.
stop it
Mhm.
when you stop thinking about it.
Yes.
Yes. When it is no longer the, all-encompassing, all-consuming thing on your mind, when it's no longer there, I mean, you can still be worried about it and everything, but when it's no longer the thing that's driving you, that's when you've got your life back.
And that is identical to an addict
hmm
and the way that their mind is working. When you
Right.
are no longer fiending for the drugs or living for the drugs or everything that, that you are living for is the drugs. And I use drugs as a very general term for whatever addiction you find yourself in, you get your life back. literally. And that was a profound moment for me as well. And I may have told this story before, but I'll tell it again because I know we have literally hundreds of new listeners every episode that we release. I remember that moment. I was not too long sober. It was maybe a year, year and a half. And up to that point, there was still a lot of temptation. I was still hard up for a drink and having to talk myself out of it. But I remember Jackson was little, my younger son. He was little, and he would still take kind of one of those in between sippy cup bottles of milk to go to sleep at night. And I was in California. We were in a bedroom upstairs at my aunt's house. Me, Rachel, Jackson, trying to put Jackson to bed. And he wanted his sippy cup with milk. So I walked downstairs to a kitchen that every square inch of the kitchen and the table and the countertop was half-drunk glasses and bottles of booze. Because it was a big old family party that happened that evening. Everyone was in bed. I was downstairs alone. Rachel was upstairs asleep. I was all by myself, surrounded by open containers of alcohol. In the middle of the night, no one would have been the wiser had I finished a couple of those cocktails before I went to bed, which was my favorite time to drink. All alone, right before bed, get good and toasty, and go to sleep. But I remember walking down the stairs, seeing this kitchen of chaos, reaching into the fridge for the jug of milk, pouring it into the sippy cup, and walking right the fuck back upstairs without a thought, without a moment of temptation, without even a second glance. And when I got back upstairs and I handed the sippy to the child and I got back in bed, was the moment that I realized that I was done. I was done with that part of my life. It didn't control me anymore. I didn't want it anymore. Because no one would have known. No one would have found out. I had developed a skill for many years of being able to drink to my heart's content without anyone being the wiser, including a wife who may have been sleeping 4 feet away from me. But the thought didn't even cross my mind. And that's when I knew that I was going to be okay. So I agree wholeheartedly that when you stop thinking about it, you're probably okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. Thank you for sharing your story.
No, I like yours as far as, you were down there, with all that booze around and didn't realize it until after you were out of that situation.
Right.
You know,
That's what was so cool about it.
Yeah, that's when you know. That's like, it's always like after that moment that you realize,
Right.
oh my God, where the heck was I? You know,
Yeah.
I was just downstairs at this time, surrounded by booze, and it didn't even cross my mind. And that's really cool.
And a lot of people think that, again, they want to put timetables on things,
Hmm.
right? Just like the timetable that was put on my job. And they want to tell you, oh, it's going to take this number of years or this number of steps or this amount of whatever before you get to that point. And I say, hogwash. It is all about you, your commitment to the situation, your willingness to put in the effort and the energy. And what do you want? And all I wanted was to not be controlled by drugs or alcohol anymore. I kept it pretty simple. And then all this amazing other stuff just started to kind of fall into place. And now I'm at a point where, for goodness sake, my in-laws, and Chaz, you know these people.
Hmm.
My wife shared with them that I had been offered this promotion at work, and they reached out to me, not only to congratulate me, but to tell me that they wanted to take me out to dinner with Rachel to celebrate said promotion. And they were probably my harshest critic, who really struggled to believe that this was something that I could get through, let alone get over and come out okay on the other side. They were not supportive. Let's just put it that way.
They're not really known for that.
When all of this shit went down.
God love
God help them.
them.
And
But they think they're being supportive.
right, they think they're being supportive on the other side, right? Like, oh, this is hopeless. This is going to end tragically. So cut your losses, get rid of this guy, because they're of that mindset. Once an addict, always an addict. Once a loser, always a loser. Run.
Hmm.
And I get it. I do. I totally get it. But it's just doesn't have to be true. Like Robinson said earlier, he has seen people who can't bring themselves to make that commitment to themselves, and so they continue this pattern of behavior over and over and over again.
A good friend of mine once said, drugs are fun until they're not fun anymore. And when you become
True.
addicted, there's just, you have to do it because you have to do it. You're not doing it to party. You're doing it because you have to, and it's not fun anymore. So whatever it is that you're trying to change in your life to get your head right, if it's not working, do something else. There are many other options than just getting high all the time.
And there are options to quit getting high as well, because that's typically the scariest part. It is like getting out of an abusive relationship. It's comfortable. It's familiar. You don't know what your life will be without this abusive person in it, because maybe you kind of like the codependency.
It's not that they like it, but they're comfortable.
Right.
You
But
get
you kind of
comfortable
like,
in a situation, and then you don't want to change it because we all fear change. That's the biggest fear, the fear of not knowing what's going to
sure.
be next. And you just got to get past that.
But you also make excuses, right? And just like an abusive relationship, if you think about a drug addict, And somebody who sticks with an abusive partner,
Mhm.
maybe the sex is great. And yeah, he kicks my ass every once in a while and he treats me like shit, but the sex is phenomenal. And so you start to only focus on the really positive bits, even if they become fewer and further between and smaller and less significant. Like, I really love the 20 minutes after I get high because that's the best thing ever. And I teach myself to stop caring about all the other shit that it brings to my life, like the lack of money, the lack of job, the lack of being able to poop, because that 20 minutes is amazing, right? So hit me again, Ike, because you're wealthy and you take care of me, or you're smoking hot and you've got a great body and I like being seen with you.
Yeah.
So beat me up on the weekends when you get angry and you hate me, but then you tell me that you love me and you tell me you can't live without me. And those are the things that I focus on. And that's what humans do. And a drug addiction is no different than an abusive relationship, and it's terrifying to get out of something that's so familiar and so comfortable because you don't know what the hell you're going to do. You don't know what life without it looks like. Similar to the story that I told about my own sister and being bipolar, but feeling like her medication made her a zombie. And because it had evened her out and she wasn't having these manic episodes where she was going to conquer the world and start a makeup business and be a millionaire and be a supermodel and all this crazy shit she wanted to do when she was manic. Like, she wasn't feeling those crazy highs anymore. So to her, she was a zombie. But to us, to everybody around her, like, she was totally fucking normal for the first time in many, many, many years. But convincing her that she wasn't a zombie was impossible. She was convinced that she was not the same person anymore, so she got off the medication and her whole life fell apart.
And typically, it's just that when you get to a point where that's when you have to find out who you are. You still don't know who you are. At least this was for me. And again, it was that point where it was just like feeling fine. I felt like a zombie before. I felt what's called flat. That's where you really don't feel anything. And if you feel like that, you should not be on whatever drug that is, because that has truly just killed your drive, your passion, and everything else. I mean, I was on one medication one time that took away my sex drive, and I went right back to my doctor. I'm like, get me the fuck off this thing. So, I mean, really, being vocal and advocating for yourself when it comes to pharmaceuticals and shit is absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
So, really, if you ever find yourself in that position where you feel like a zombie, go right back to your doctor and say, hey, this one didn't work. And I'll tell you what, when you find the ones that do work, you won't realize it until after someone asks you. You know,
Yeah.
you're not just gonna wake up, go, hey, wow, this is really working. It's gonna be like when someone stops you and goes, hey, how you doing? And it's fine. You know, you don't feel like a zombie. You don't feel like anything. You just feel fine.
Normal.
I wouldn't say normal. I'd just say you feel okay. You know, in other words, you're not manic, you're not depressed, you know, you're not what you're used to, but you're cool with that.
But you're cool with that.
Yes.
That's the important part.
Yes.
You have to be okay with where you're at.
Exactly.
And
So
if you're not,
like trying to convince someone that they aren't, that's just, that just not going to do them any better, any good.
so that's actually really interesting because I know that I, myself, and the rest of my family, being around my sister during that period, we felt like she was the person we knew growing up and the person that we loved and appreciated her quirky personality and this was the normal her. And we tried very hard to convince her that that was the case. But what you're saying is it may have been better that since she didn't feel okay and felt like a zombie, that she should have been encouraged to share that with her doctor
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
to see
really,
how they could tweak it.
it I would say that it's actually harmful to try and convince someone that they are any one particular way or not, because really that's imposing your reality on them. It's
Hmm.
imposing your view and your expectation. It's taking their identity and changing it to fit your perception.
And it
Interesting.
doesn't matter how educated or informed you are, unless you're a professional doing that for your business, then you don't have the right really to tell anybody about their life because it's not your life. It's not their life. It's like everyone's different.
And the only thing that gives anyone the right to do that is if you're paying them.
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. You're a professional therapist
Mhm.
or drug dealer. Oh,
That actually is a really valid point, Robinson. I have known many drug dealers who maybe didn't start out as someone's drug dealer. They started out as someone's friend,
yes.
and then that friend turned into a customer, and then that drug dealer, even though they were making money
Right.
off
They're
of that
watching their friend
friend,
go downhill.
right, they know where it leads, and so they try to convince that friend that maybe they're not making the best decisions, and
Yeah.
then all hell breaks loose between those friends because how dare you, if you were really my friend, you wouldn't be judging me and
Right.
all that drama. But it's interesting because a drug dealer, I've seen very moral drug dealers before, which I know sounds like a contradiction, where I had a friend. He used to get me drugs, and I was ready to take the next step in back into my drug career that I had had when I was living in Northern California, looking for a particular type of drug that was difficult for me to find in Arizona. And I asked him, knowing his lifestyle, knowing who he was, hey, can you get me this? And he lied to me and told me he could not. Nope, just not something you can get your hands on around here. Then I found out later
Good man.
that he was full of shit. That he absolutely, as easily, if not more easily, than he was able to get what he had been getting me, he could have gotten that. But he chose not to because he saw the path that I was on and he cared more about me than about the money he could have made.
Was he putting money aside from the profits that he was making off you to pay for your recovery?
No,
Because that would be a true friend.
that would be, but that would be asking a little too much, I'm sure. So I thought that was very interesting, the morality of a drug dealer, because you look at somebody like an alcohol pusher, you know, a bartender, somebody that owns a bar,
Yeah.
and they tend to try to look out for their patrons. They'll cut you off.
Right.
Hmm.
Not well. It's also because it's a legal obligation. They, if you get in a car accident when you walk out the door, it's because they didn't, cut you off.
Sure.
But also, yeah, you're right. I see a lot of bartenders that tell their customers as if they were a friend, because they kind of are. Bartenders and hairdressers are like your therapist in many
Hmm.
ways,
Totally.
and you want to look out for your friends.
Yeah. Because it's not
So yeah, but
when
drug
it's
dealers don't put money aside for therapy or for even for a lawyer. Which I mean, a smart drug dealer would put money aside to cover his medical or his legal
Legal.
fees when he gets busted, because that's
he'd
only
have a he'd
inevitability.
have a lawyer on a good defense attorney on retainer,
Yeah, or on drugs.
like uh like Walter White from Breaking Bad. Always got to have that lawyer in your back pocket just in case the day comes. Because the day will come. It always does. So
A lawyer with the habit.
I personally have really enjoyed our conversation this evening, gentlemen.
Hmm.
We didn't talk about the 4th of July at all.
No, we didn't.
No, we really didn't. But that's okay.
Awesome.
Maybe
God
what we
bless
can do
America.
is we can collect some 4th of July stories after the holiday weekend
Yeah.
and see about what we can do to help prevent next year's ridiculousness, which I'm sure we'll find some good stories. I will scour the news to find really good 4th of July weekend stories. How about that?
All right.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
And then while we do that, we will also let's take a listen to last week's episode, refresh our minds about what our guest had to share, because I'd still really like to talk about that.
Okay.
Just point counterpoint basically, and we'll get into a discussion about that. But this has been the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast, coming to you live on YouTube.com. You can reach us at Sober Happy Hour on Twitter, soberhappyhour@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/soberhappyhour. And if you have a moment, please hit subscribe right there on your YouTube. And then if you subscribe to the podcast, leave a rating and a review. That is very, very helpful. We haven't had any ratings or reviews in a while. Pick up the pace, people. It helps us reach the higher level of things on the iTunes. We started receiving emails from iTunes podcast department because of the growth of our podcast, trying to help us market and keep the podcast fresh and going. So I thought that was pretty cool.
And since we're getting so popular, it's a good investment for any potential sponsors. If you want to sponsor the show, get in touch with us.
Get in touch, soberhappyhour@gmail.com. We would love to talk about sponsorship.
I need my cough button.
That's true. Very true.
Maybe we'll get sponsored by a cough button company.
All right, guys. Well, if you or yours
Good
is
show.
considering getting sober, I highly recommend it, and we will see you next week. Good night.
Good night.
Peace out.
Bye-bye.
Later.
Good show. Good show.